Welcome to the Runway, where we cover current events in crypto, Web3, and tech. It's Wednesday, January 10th. Let's take off. Well, folks, we got a spicy one for you today. It looks like it's official. This time, the SEC means it. BlackRock and Grayscale, among 11 firms, finally approved for spot Bitcoin ETFs. And what a clusterfuck it's been. The U.S. will finally be getting spot Bitcoin ETFs, with industry analysts predicting a surge in institutional capital inflow into Bitcoin. Quick touch on this. I think it's very important for people to temper their expectations that, this is all going to happen at once. But I think people definitely underestimate how impactful this will be over the long term, as capital is sort of passively allocated to these ETF funds for people with 401ks, Roth IRAs, investment advisors, pension funds. You will have people just pressing buttons that will just, as people are, investing in their retirement accounts, a portion of that will be used to purchase Bitcoin ETFs. So I think this is an extremely long-term passive bullish force, and it's about damn time. So more drama. It looks like this was this SEC sort of approval message was posted on their website before they're ready to actually approve it, which was just another extension of the incompetence we saw yesterday from the SEC with someone hacking their Twitter account. And probably, I'm starting to lean more towards the fact that that could potentially just be a lie that they're using to cover their ass, and that maybe some kind of staffer who was managing the account, or they had this file in the draft folder. Potentially, maybe just someone posted it too early, or something happens. This was a draft that was already prepared inside their Twitter in their Twitter draft folder. But who really knows at the end of the day? But one thing is clear: it's a definite sign of some serious incompetence. When I went to search for this, I couldn't find it on the SEC's page. It looked like they accidentally put it up and then they put it back down. So I used the Internet Wayback Machine here to actually go back and take a look at it. And I shit you not, it popped right up, and it looks like another screw up by them here. I then went and found this statement on the approval of spot Bitcoin exchange traded products from Mr. Gary Gensler, the ultimate hypocrite we have here. Today, the commission approved the listing and trading of a number of spot Bitcoin exchange traded products. So this is his official statement here. And one thing I found sort of kind of crazy, I read through this and he couldn't help but put his little comments in here. This is someone who's the ultimate hypocrite, who has supposedly had all these amazing things to say about Bitcoin. But it looks like whoever's pulling his strings, Elizabeth Warren, he had this little comment to make here. Though we're merit neutral, and I'm not sure why this is even in discussion in his thing. It's not the SEC's job to debate the merits of investments. I mean, it's up to people to make their decision on what they think they should invest in. Though we're merit neutral, I'd note that the underlying assets in the metals ETPs have consumer and industrial uses, while in contrast, Bitcoin is primarily a speculative, volatile asset that's also used for illicit activity, including ransomware, money laundering, sanction evasion, and terrorist financing. He had to put this little barb in there. It's like, I could make the same argument for metals being used in bombs and weapons that are used against us, right? Or guns that kill people. I mean, that's just absurd thing to put in his little post here, which it's probably, this was prepared for him by his overlords to march out here. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about some regulatory news. It looks like Turkey is nearing a completion of comprehensive crypto regulation framework. The Turkish government is set to establish legal definitions for key cryptocurrency concepts, regulate trading platforms through licensing, and align with the standards of the Financial Action Task Force. In an interview with the Anadolu Agency on January 10th, Turkish Minister of Treasury and Finance Mehmet Şimşek confirmed that the cryptocurrency framework tailored for the Turkish market is nearing completion, with current efforts focused on evaluating the technical aspects of its implementation. Şimşek emphasized that the upcoming regulations aim to mitigate the risks associated with cryptocurrency trading, protecting ordinary investors. Key aspects of these regulations include legal definitions of crucial crypto-related terms such as crypto assets, crypto wallets, and crypto asset service providers. It's nice to see more comprehensive crypto frameworks being rolled out all over the world, and I think we're going to continue to see this. And I think this is just a common theme to watch as the world sort of wakes up and finds a way to fit these new technologies into their existing regulatory framework. It won't all be bad and it won't all be good, but at least we're on our way. Next up. and this I found really interesting. It seems a taxing obligation is crypto reporting impossible under U.S. law. And this is something that I've struggled with, I've looked at, and it's just really hard to make sense of what's going on. I mean, the tax code continues to grow. It continues to get more and more confusing. Taxation-wise, the U.S. may be unprepared for the investor rush in the wake of a spot Bitcoin ETF. There is a new tax law, but no guidelines. So just stuff that doesn't really make sense. People are writing these laws and things, have no idea what they're really talking about. They don't understand the industry, either that or they're setting up a situation so they can sort of abuse their power and utilize selective enforcement whenever they feel like it, because a lot of this stuff is just impossible to comply with because it is just not relevant. This sort of one size fits all that just doesn't make sense for the future of finance. Jerry Brito, CEO of crypto lobbying groups Coin Center, wrote in a blog post on January 2nd that it's virtually impossible to comply with crypto tax reporting obligations as things stand now, particularly in light of a provision added a few years ago as part of the United States Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Gotta love it. They force through these big bills that have stuff that has nothing to do with investment, infrastructure, and jobs. I mean, this is just something that has to do with the IRS. Crazy, crazy, crazy. That provision, which took effect on January 1st, 2024, amends the U.S. tax code to require anyone who receives $10,000 or more in cryptocurrency in the course of their trade or business to make a report to the IRS, the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, about the transaction. This might seem innocuous enough, but if, for example, a Bitcoin miner receives block rewards in excess of $10,000, then whose name, address, and social security number do they report, as now required by law? Brito asks. The equivalent for this would be if someone digs up a gold mine out of the ground, they have to report who the social security number of whoever owned that gold, right? I mean, if you're in the middle of a jungle and you dig out a bar of gold that's worth $100,000 or a big nugget of gold, I mean, nobody owned that before. It's impossible to comply with this. It just doesn't make sense. Or say you engage in an on-chain decentralized exchange of crypto for crypto and you therefore receive $10,000 in cryptocurrency. Who do you report? How does one even determine if the amount of crypto is equivalent to $10,000? The law is silent on this matter, and the IRS has not issued any guidance answering these and other questions, wrote Brito. So I think something definitely worth paying attention to here. But they just seem to continually add more and more laws, regulation, things on the book, and they just stack on top of each other until you get, tens of thousands, hundred thousands of pages of stuff that's just, it's impossible to understand. It's impossible to wade through. And it's just sort of this, it allows these agencies to continue to grow and grow and grow, and then just sort of have this gotcha power on you whenever you're a target. Next up, why Bitcoin ETFs will consolidate the Bitcoin mining industry. The Bitcoin mining industry has evolved with the global spread of crypto, and the next era is poised to necessitate new changes. The Bitcoin mining industry, once a landscape dominated by individual enthusiasts, is now at a critical juncture, grappling with the forces of centralization and decentralization. This was the crux of a thought-provoking dialogue between Roundtable anchor Rob Nelson and Adam Sullivan, CEO of Core Scientific, one of the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miners in the world. In a world where liquidity, engagement, and Bitcoin mining are surging, Nelson posed a critical question. What happens to the mining industry as we have this massive expansion in liquidity, engagement in the space? Does it consolidate? His inquiry touches on a fundamental irony of Bitcoin, a system designed for decentralization, now potentially facing the opposite. And I think the interesting answer here was, yes, you may see some consolidation amongst publicly traded mining companies, but publicly traded mining companies as a percentage of the total network has actually decreased over the past few years, he said. While acknowledging the possibility of consolidation among major public mining companies, Sullivan emphasized their relatively small share in the overall network, under 20%. This detail is significant, as it suggests that despite the growth and consolidation of big players like Core Scientific and Marathon, the broader network remains largely decentralized, with a significant presence in countries with more accessible or affordable energy resources. So I think this is an interesting point to hammer home and look at, that there are different miners and people of different sizes, small, medium, large, home miners all over the world that are making up this decentralized sort of living organism of a network to protect the network and to increase its security over time. So I think we're actually going to see more sort of geographic dispersion, especially as we get more greener technologies that can sort of be utilized all over the planet. So I think endgame, we'll probably see where you'd think you'd see this consolidation, which you might within these publicly traded mining companies, but I think mining in general will continue to decentralize sort of all over the world as we chase cheaper and cheaper energy sources and renewable energy sources especially. Next up, Linux devices are under attack by a never-before-seen worm. Based on Mirai malware, self-replicating NoahBot installs crypto mining app on infected devices. So I thought this was interesting to look at. A lot of sort of IoT devices, cameras, Linux computers that are connected. This sort of Monero mining bot that can use the CPU of these machines is just an interesting thing to look at with botnets and bot swarms. Always be diligent with your cybersecurity. There will be sort of this tug and pull, just like we see in nature. You're going to see the same thing in computing, where you've got cybersecurity defenses growing. At the same time, you're going to have different avenues and different angles to a sort of attack. And then you're going to see the opposite, where the defenses catch up, right? So this is just an interesting thing to point out. Next up, Scammy AI-generated book rewrites are flooding Amazon. Authors keep finding what appear to be AI-generated imitations and summaries of their books on Amazon. There's little they can do to rein in the ripoffs. I don't know if I agree with that. I think there's something they can definitely do. When AI researchers Melanie Mitchell published Artificial Intelligence, A Guide for Thinking Humans in 2019, she set out to clarify AI's impact. A few years later, ChatGPT set off a new AI boom, with the side effect that caught her off guard. An AI-generated imitation of her book appeared on Amazon. In an apparent scheme to profit off her work, it looks like another example of the e-commerce giant's ongoing problem with a glut of low-quality AI-generated ebooks. So first up, I don't think you're fully ever going to be able to stop this problem, but I think there are, tools, and especially some AI tools that can be used to combat this and potentially stop the proliferation of this, right? There's upload procedures, and I think a lot of the responsibility for this falls on Amazon, right? They've got this huge platform. I'm pretty sure they take like something ridiculous, like 30 to 50% of each book sale. So they really should be giving something back to their authors in the sense of at least protecting them from stuff like this. And there should be a good way to report this. At the end of the day, the purchaser or the person buying the book should do a little due diligence and research on what they're buying, right? If the book if like they said in this article that, there was a made up name and there was no, bio profile, there was no history on the author, do a little research before you purchase. You can't, fool in their money or soon parted, right? So you'd expect before somebody just pulls the trigger on a book, they do a little bit of research on what they're, going to buy and who the author is and, go down the rabbit hole a little bit on that front. Next up, Japan tells domestic tech sector to prioritize human-centric AI growth. Nations around the world are asking questions about how to use artificial intelligence to solve existing problems while avoiding or controlling for the new problems AI might create. The Japanese government has called on its domestic tech companies to be human-centric when developing or using generative AI. The 10 principles call on domestic Japanese companies to be focused on human beings and require firms integrating and developing AI systems to respect the dignity of individuals and pay careful attention to potential harm, and not develop or provide AI for the purpose of wrongfully manipulating human decisions or emotions. The guidelines are based on the G7's Hiroshima AI process for international rulemaking. I think it's an important conversation to have, important conversation to encourage. I think it's largely a good thing, right? But at the end of the day, we don't want to slow down progress for problems that might not even exist, right? We want to sort of, continue to innovate, continue to move forward. And when a problem does arise, then we can sort of deal with that problem. Finally, which I thought this article was cool, Michigan University to let AI participate in classes, choose major, earn degree. The experiment could reveal useful insights about the way students perceive and interact with curriculum in a university environment. Ferris State University in Michigan intends to enroll 2 artificial intelligence students in classes this year. So I think these will be like AI agents here that will have the ability to... At first, according to the report, they'll merely be observers, but the plan is for them to eventually participate in classroom discussions, turn in written assignments, and ostensibly meet any other standard requirements for students on the way to earning their respective degrees. So it looks like the AI will have access here to observe via audio and video. Interesting little experiment here. Finally, for the day, let's take a look at some interesting ExTakes. So here is the first one I found. Natalie Brunell delivers an absolutely epic dialogue only hours before the first spot Bitcoin ETF approvals. This came a couple hours ago.
Bottom line, waiting for this ETF announcement that was going to include Bitcoin as part of its offerings here that would increase demand on not only for Bitcoin, but a host of other crypto-related plays. Still waiting for that. Natalie Bushnell joins us, the Coin Stories podcast host. Natalie, what's the story on this? Where does this stand? It was supposed to happen yesterday, today at the latest. It might still happen today, but what if it doesn't?
Hi, Neil. Great to see you. I think this was one last rug pull on these spot ETFs for old time's sake. And yes, I think it's still going to happen today. It's been a long time coming, and these regulators and issuers have been going over every detail of these spot Bitcoin ETFs and pretty much cleared their holiday schedules the last 2 months to only work on this. So yes, I see it still happening, and there has never been so much anticipation for an ETF in the history of this investment vehicle.
So what would drive it, and what would the difference be of an ETF set up to include it?
So I think this is going to bring in a lot of investors who weren't able to allocate to Bitcoin. Financial advisors will now be incentivized and have a fiduciary responsibility to tell their clients about Bitcoin. It will bring in the RIAs, the pension funds, the endowments, and pretty soon Bitcoin will be part of every portfolio. And, I think that this is really historic because it signals that Bitcoin is being accepted as an essential asset within the upper echelons of traditional finance. And I think a lot of people don't realize how impactful Bitcoin will be and how many billions of dollars will flow into it. And what I think is amazing, Neil, is 15 years ago, a new technology and a new form of money emerged organically, completely bottom up. And it's now a major asset class with some of Wall Street's biggest firms jockeying to win liquidity in their new ETF when it gets approved. But this really is a working class phenomenon that trickled up. And so now the titans and legends of investing are realizing that no asset carries the promise and the potential of Bitcoin. And I think the ETF will just be the first of many developments on the path to every person and every business saving in Bitcoin and becoming more economically empowered.
Gotta love Natalie's take. She absolutely crushes it here. And I think she hits the nail absolutely on the head. Justin, JP Morgan CEO, says Bitcoin has no value and its use cases are sex trafficking, tax avoidance and money laundering, and terrorism finance. JP Morgan is an authorized participant for BlackRock's spot Bitcoin ETF.
There's also new regulation coming on Bitcoin, and you famously said recently that you would shut it down if you were in government. Can you give us more clarity on that?
Yeah, what I was also pointing out is that the actual use cases are sex trafficking, tax avoidance, anti-money laundering, terrorism financing. It's not people just buying and selling Bitcoin. There's no value to if you're buying and selling Bitcoin.
A lot there from Jamie Dimon.
He said he would shut it down. Yet here he is facilitating the ETF as an authorized participant. I mean, you cannot make up the level of hypocrisy here. It's just unbelievable. And of course, many of you who have been in the space for a long time obviously know the value of being able to protect your life's energy and vacuum seal your energy away from all of the people who would print money out of thin air and steal it from you, or deplatform you, or shut you down, right? So there are plenty of use cases here, obviously ridiculous things that he's coming out of his mouth, very privileged and just clueless. It's more likely he's just protecting his vested interest, right? Because he's definitely got his finger in the pie. Next up, Justin, Edward Snowden tells SEC chairs Gary Gensler, get your shit together. Jesus Christ, Gary, get your shit together. After he posted, the SEC Gov Twitter account was compromised and an unauthorized tweet was posted. The SEC had not approved the listing and trading of spot Bitcoin exchange-traded products. We saw this yesterday. Edward Snowden says, you had one job. Killed me. All right. Elon posted here, which I thought was kind of cool. Shifting power back to the people means taking it away from the political class and their puppets in the press. Could not agree more. Let's give this a like and a retweet. And finally for the day, Elon Musk slams the SEC.
No, I want to be clear. I do not respect the SEC. I do not respect them.
But you're abiding by the settlement, aren't you?
Because I respect the justice system.
Look at you.
No.
And God bless Elon. Very cool. I will leave you guys with that for the day. Stay safe, stay blessed, never stop learning, and keep an open mind. Thanks for listening.